Today we're going to work on identifying appositives and appositive phrases. It's a big word, appositive, but all it really means is a noun or a noun phrase that's describing a noun that's already there with it. There are two types. They are essential or non-essential. Essential means you can't take it out of the sentence or you would actually lose really important meaning. Non-essential means it's just extra information and it could go. And we'll show you how those two things work out as we move through. So what we're looking for here is some kind of word or phrase that's describing a noun that usually comes before it. So let's listen for that. Siberian tigers, which are the largest members of the cat family, can weigh up to 675 pounds. Sumatran tigers, the smallest tiger subspecies, weigh only 200 to 300 pounds. This is actually a really tricky one, and I'm going to show you why. It's easy to make this mistake. We see Siberian tigers, that's a noun, and then we see which are the largest members of the cat family. Like, oh, well that describes Siberian tigers, right? It must be an appositive, but it's not. It's not a noun phrase. It's a clause. Which and are, that's my subject and my verb, and these are not clauses. They're just phrases. We're looking for a word or just a group of words that don't have a subject and a verb. If you look below it though, Sumatran tigers, the smallest tiger subspecies, that is just a noun phrase describing the Sumatran tigers. So this right here is what I would click and submit. You'll notice that it's surrounded in commas. That's because it is a non-essential appositive. I can take it out and still have my sentence work. It would be Sumatran tigers weigh only 200 to 300 pounds. I haven't lost essential information. The smallest tiger subspecies, it tells us more. It kind of renames those tigers, but the sentence works without it. So it's called non-essential and it's surrounded with commas. That's a helpful hint, but it only works with non-essentials. Here we have an example of an essential appositive. It's not going to be surrounded by commas because I can't take it out. So here's the sentence. In 2004, led by pilot Mike Melville, Spaceship One became the first private manned space vehicle to fly into space. So I'm looking for a noun that's been kind of described, and the noun that's being described again is pilot. Pilot is the subject of this well, it's not. It's the subject here, and this is his noun. Mike Melville is describing the pilot. Pilot is a noun. Mike Melville is a noun. It's a noun describing a noun, and that is what an appositive is, a noun describing a noun. But I can't take Mike Melville out because that's the more specific information. I can't say, led by pilot, Spaceship One became the first. It doesn't make any sense. So I have to keep Mike Melville. It's essential, so it's not surrounded by a comma, so it's just a little harder to find, but Mike Melville is my appositive. Many of Ferrucci Lamborghini's sports cars have had names related to bullfighting. The Miura, for example, was named for Don Eduardo Miura, a bull breeder. So here they're actually kind of trick us up a little bit, because again, I told you that with some appositives, they surround with commas. So they surrounded, for example, with commas, but that's not a noun phrase. A bull breeder? That is a noun phrase. Is it describing another noun? Sure is. It's describing Don Eduardo Miura. That is my appositive, and because it's non-essential, I can put it in commas and it'll stand out a little bit more. So that's a bull breeder would be my appositive phrase. All right. This one's also trying to be a little tricksy because they surrounded some things with commas, but those aren't the appositives. The appositive in this case is an essential one that's not surrounded with commas. The American delegation to the 1915 International Congress of Women included social activist Jane Addams. Addams, famous for her work with immigrants at Chicago's Hull House, was also well known for her work on women's rights. So this part here, this famous for her work with immigrants at the Hull House, looks like it's describing Addams, which it is, but it's not a noun. Famous for her work is an adjective. That's an adjective phrase describing Addams. But over here, Jane Addams is a noun that's describing social activist. So that is my essential appositive. So there's no commas around it, but it is a noun describing another noun. Jane Addams is my appositive. The author, Louisa May Alcott, published the first volume of Little Women on September 30th, 1868. The second volume was published the following year. Now there's no commas setting anything apart here, so at least that's been nice for us. So we know we're looking for an essential appositive, a noun that's describing a noun that has to stay in the sentence, and oftentimes that's going to be a name. Here I see Louisa May Alcott. Oh boy, that was what I meant to do. Let's try that. Louisa May Alcott. That's a noun describing the author. So Louisa May Alcott is my appositive. Well, here's a pretty little sentence. The venom of the brown recluse spider, one of the most dangerous spiders in the United States, will destroy the walls of the blood vessels surrounding the bite. This one is one of those long ones. One of the most dangerous spiders in the United States. That's a noun phrase. There's no verbs in it. It's not an adjective phrase. It's talking about these spiders, and that is sort of telling us more about that spider. So you've got a noun describing a noun. This one's one of those ones that's it's nice to spot because my voice dropped. Do you hear that? Because appositives, the non-essential ones, are types of interrupters and your voice drops when you say it. The venom of the brown recluse spider, one of the most dangerous spiders in the United States, will destroy, etc. So you can watch for that, but it only works for the non-essential ones. Okay, just in case you need a couple more examples, Erin's sister, Jane, loves to shop for vintage dresses at thrift stores and consignment shops and often finds incredible bargains. Let's look for a noun describing another noun. Jane is a noun. Right? There we go. Jane is a noun, and it's describing sister. So that's my non-essential appositive, which is why it's surrounded by commas. The reason that you can do that with that name, Erin's sister, Jane, means there's only one sister. If you had two sisters, we wouldn't have been able to surround it with commas because you would have needed to know which one it was. So that's how it works. In 1940, the Bismarck, a heavily armed German battleship, was commissioned. It was the envy of other nations' navies until it sank the next year. Oftentimes, the appositive is being used to tell more about the subject. So if you're just like, where do I even start? You can find the subject, which is the Bismarck. So anything describing it, there sure is. A heavily armed German battleship, which is a noun phrase, describing that one. So this one is my appositive. And finally, when Marshall went to the Indian and American fusion restaurant, he ordered tilapia in a sauce made with masala, an Indian spice blend. So I'm looking here in the first clause, when Marshall went to the Indian and Asian fusion restaurant. Nothing there is describing anything before it. So then I look on, he ordered tilapia in a sauce made with masala, an Indian spice blend. Okay, so here we have an example where this Indian spice blend, which is a noun phrase, is describing what masala is. And it's non-essential because masala is still it, even though you don't describe it. So it's surrounded by commas, and that's my appositive. And that's it, kids. It's a little bit complicated, but you'll start to just sort of feel them, and then you can just double check, okay, this feels like the appositive. Let's see if it's actually describing something. It's actually a noun phrase, and that's how you'll find it. Have fun practicing. It's a fun little thing to know.